Why does a narcissist eventually start to hate their new supply, end up endlessly haunted by memories of you? Picture this for a moment. They've moved on, right? A new partner, a clean slate, a version of life where you no longer exist. You'd expect relief, distraction, maybe even a sense of renewal. But what usually happens instead is much more revealing and brutally honest. Within weeks or months, the narcissist who once lived off the glow of your admiration starts to crack. They pull away from the new person. Sudden bursts of anger or bitterness show up. And even while they're soaking in fresh attention, they feel chased by you, your voice, your smell, your laugh, your energy. In today's video, we're going to look at why a narcissist eventually turns on the new supply and stays haunted by the memory of you. We'll walk to what psychologists call the emotional fallout that shows up after you go no contact and the first idealization phase ends, and why, at their core, narcissists struggle to let go of what you once gave them. If you've watched this pattern play out and wondered what really drives it underneath the charm and the bragging, stay with me. You're about to see that this haunting is not about love. It's about being exposed, losing power, and watching a carefully built identity fall apart. Stay with me to the end, because you'll see why they eventually devalue this new source of validation, and why your absence still hooks them in ways they can't admit out loud. To really understand this haunting, we first have to look at how narcissists treat relationships and why the relationships run the same pattern again and again. Narcissists move around one main need: narcissistic supply, a constant stream of outside validation. It feeds their ego, steadies their fragile sense of self, and covers a deep inner emptiness. Ideally, that supply comes from admiring partners, loyal friends, or devoted followers online. But it isn't love. It's fuel. When they lock in new supply, everything looks perfect at first. They charm the new partner, show affection, and soak up the thrill. But within weeks, something shifts. Any pushback or criticism feels unbearable. Their hunger for praise starts to crush any real joy. And because supply never comes without some friction, the relationship starts to break down. Why? Because new supply always stirs up old insecurity. The narcissist begins to hear faint echoes of the truth, the emptiness they felt with you, what they lost when they hurt you. The moment you finally called them out. That inner mirror is something they fight hard to avoid. Here's how that process plays out. First, there's the idealization trap. With you, they went through intense idealization, that honeymoon phase where everything matched their fantasy. They truly believed they had found perfection. But that stage always fades because real relationships grow and real life gets complicated. When the new partner can't keep matching that fantasy image, disappointment and resentment creep in. Second, there's the projection of guilt. Thoughts of you usually come back right when the new relationship starts to lose its shine. Old guilt and shame rise up. Instead of facing those feelings, they dump them onto the new partner and onto you. Suddenly, everything starts to feel threatening. Your memory, your qualities, your impact. Third, you get the comparison spiral. As their frustration grows, they begin to compare everything, every talk, the chemistry, the emotional highs, to the rush they once had with you. Your laugh, your reactions, your emotional depth become the quiet standard. And the result is predictable: contempt for what they have now and longing for what they lost. Fourth, there's the haunting as a power vacuum. More than anything, the haunting shows up because of the emotional hole they feel without you. No matter how much new supply they pull in, it never matches the history, the chemistry, the bond you built. Your absence brings in feelings of abandonment, doubt, and regret, each one chipping away at their illusion of control. Under all that pride and arrogance sits a deeply hurt core. They lost your supply, and it stings. Fifth, they start to resent the new supply because it doesn't heal the wound. At first, the new person looks like a cure, a bright distraction to numb the pain of losing you, a way to quiet the emptiness your absence left behind. But here's the catch. No matter how much attention, affection, or praise the new partner gives, it falls short. It doesn't fill the same space. It doesn't wipe away the shame, the rejection, or the hard truth you once forced them to face. So, what happens next? They turn on the new supply. The person who once looked like a rescue now becomes a reminder of everything broken inside them. The narcissist starts calling the new partner flawed, annoying, even the enemy. Not because that person actually failed in some huge way, but because they couldn't deliver the emotional miracle the narcissist secretly wanted. The resentment grows, not because of real harm, but because the fantasy crashed. The illusion died, and instead of facing their own emptiness, the narcissist throws the blame onto everyone else. Sixth, they feel trapped by the expectations of a real relationship, just like they did with you. The narcissist may have put on a great show at the start, manipulating, controlling, hiding their emptiness behind well-timed affection. But over time, the mask slips. Their lack of empathy, emotional depth, and self-awareness shows. And with the new supply, the same pattern starts again. At first, it feels exciting. They get admiration and feel like they're back in charge of the story. But narcissists can't keep that act going forever. Real relationships ask for vulnerability, consistency, and mutual respect, qualities they can't hold on to. When the new partner starts asking for real closeness, accountability, or just plain honesty, the narcissist feels cornered. They feel pushed to give something they don't have. Instead of looking inward, they lash out. Instead of growing, they get bitter. Instead of maturing, they fall apart. The pressure to show up as a true partner becomes too much. Slowly, the relationship starts to rot from the inside. Seventh, they project their self-hatred onto the new partner. Underneath the surface, narcissists carry a fragile, shaky identity that they protect with constant validation. When old shame gets triggered, often by past wounds or the sting of rejection, it's too much for them. Instead of facing that shame, they push it away. Suddenly, the new partner is labeled not good enough. They attack how they talk, how they think, how they show love. Every tiny flaw becomes a projection of the narcissist's own inner disgust. This projection is brutal. It turns the new partner from rescuer into target. Anything that reminds the narcissist of their failures, especially the fact that they lost you, gets flipped into blame. They might say, "You're nothing like my ex. You don't get me. You're too sensitive," just like the last one. But they're not really talking about the new person. They're trying to outrun the guilt and the exposure that woke up when you left. Eighth, they can't escape the emotional imprint of what you gave them. One big reason they stay haunted by you is simple. Deep down, they know no one else has seen through them the way you did. They may have fought you. They may have argued, gaslit, or discarded you. But you called out the mask, and you didn't back down. You brought a kind of love that was real, imperfect, and deeply human. And that truth rattles them. When they look at the new supply, they feel what's missing right away. There's no shared history, no layered emotional intimacy, no quiet understanding built through struggle. The new person might admire them, but that admiration feels shallow because the narcissist hasn't shown their real self. Ironically, that only makes their loneliness bigger. They are haunted by how you challenged their manipulation, how you spotted their lies, how you gave forgiveness, but still held them to account. They remember that you finally chose to leave. You weren't perfect, but you were real. And in a life built on performance and illusion, that kind of authenticity sticks like a mark they can't wash off. Ninth, the relationship with the new supply shifts from excitement to obligation. Narcissists run on intensity, novelty, and the quick hit of admiration. They chase emotional highs, the rush of something new, the thrill of being wanted and idealized. In the early stage of a relationship, everything feels electric because they hold the power. The other person is hooked, and the validation is constant. But that rush is temporary. Once the first dopamine spike fades, as it always does in real relationships, something changes. The connection that once blew up their ego starts to feel heavy. The spark fades. Instead of feeling fired up, they feel drained. Compliments start to sound the same. Affection feels empty, even annoying at times. They become impatient, restless, and bored. The same traits they praised in the new partner now get on their nerves. They feel smothered by the attention they once demanded. What used to thrill them now wears them out. And at this point, the pullback starts. Emotionally, they check out. The warmth is gone. The affection they once poured on turns into cold distance or flat indifference. In many situations, it goes even further. Frustration turns into hostility. They may get passive-aggressive, manipulative, or just openly cruel. Some slide into emotional abuse, quietly tearing the new partner down, criticizing them, punishing them for not being enough. It's not really about the new partner's limits. It's about the narcissist's inability to stay emotionally present once the newness wears off. Why does this cycle keep repeating? Because the new partner can't keep the fantasy alive forever. At the start, the narcissist projected an ideal image onto them, not seeing who they really were, but who they needed them to be. When reality shows up, normal needs, boundaries, flaws, all the things that make someone human, the illusion cracks. And when that fantasy breaks, the narcissist doesn't look inward. They look outward. They punish the new supply for failing to follow an impossible script. At the same time as their dissatisfaction grows, another feeling starts to creep in: nostalgia. They quietly begin to miss what they had with you. Not in a healthy, secure way that real love works, but because you were something more layered, more grounded. With you, there was depth. There was complexity. You pushed them in ways that forced hard self-reflection. You had emotional layers they could never fully control. You had strength. You had empathy. You called them out. You asked for honesty. You asked for vulnerability. And even though that terrified them, it also woke up something real. Now, without that emotional tension, their inner emptiness gets louder. On some level, they see that what they have now doesn't have the same substance, depth, or honesty they had with you. You became a mirror, showing not only who they were, but who they might have been if they were able to truly change. And that insight hangs around. It stays with them long after the new supply fades. It lingers. It follows them. It becomes a quiet echo behind every relationship that falls apart afterward. 10th, they start obsessing over what you're doing now. As their new relationship weakens and loses its first intensity, their thoughts slowly drift back to you. The emotional high they chased wears off, the novelty is gone, and suddenly their focus moves from the person in front of them to the one who walked away. Silently and compulsively, they begin to wonder about your life without them. What are you doing now? Are you happier without them? Have you found someone more grounded, more caring, more emotionally present than they ever were? Are you thriving, glowing, building a life with the stability they never gave you? Those questions don't come from healthy regret or grown-up love. They come from a need to prove to themselves that they still matter. The narcissist can't stand the thought that you truly let go and built a life where they mean nothing. So, to grab back a sense of control, they may start watching your social media, picking apart every post, every silence, every smile. They might ask around through mutual friends, digging for signs that you're still hurt, looking for proof that you're still emotionally hooked. They may scroll old photos, reread messages, replay old voice notes, not to treasure the past, but to keep the story alive that some part of you still belongs to them. But if you stayed no contact, if you built a calm, steady life free from their drama, if you stepped out of their emotional grip and refused to go back, you delivered the ultimate blow. You cut the last cord they used to pull you in, and that silence, that space, that independence is what really shakes them. They don't just dislike it, they hate it. They hate that they can no longer get a reaction out of you. They hate that their manipulation no longer breaks through your boundaries. They hate that you survived everything they did and came out stronger. They hate that their charm, once so powerful, no longer touches your peace. They hate that their carefully built persona no longer gets your applause. They hate that this new source of validation, no matter how eager or devoted, can't match the emotional depth and strength you once brought into their life. And more than anything, they resent a truth they feel but will never say out loud. The person they once tried to shrink has become someone they can't erase. You live in their mind, not as a victim, but as a symbol of strength, freedom, and everything they can't truly own. That's the final haunting. Not just your absence, but the life you're living now. Proof, real proof, that they were never as necessary, powerful, or unforgettable as they needed to believe. So why does a narcissist eventually turn against the new supply? Because new supply never fixes the break inside them. Because no one else can give back the identity they felt slipping away when you walked out. Because love was never the goal. Control was. And when that control vanished with your silence, their ability to hide their emotional chaos faded too. The haunting is not really about you as a person. It's about what you stood for. Truth, grounding, authenticity qualities they can't build inside themselves. Qualities they usually destroy when they get too close. If you ever felt thrown away or replaced, hear this clearly. It was never about your worth. It was proof of their limits. And now, as they spin in dissatisfaction, dumping bitterness onto someone new, they are haunted. Not because you ruined them, but because you refuse to stay small. Stay quiet on their drama. Stay healing. Stay free. Because the life you took back now lives in their mind, unreachable, undeniable, and beyond their control.